what a good advisor is a coach that helps you figure out what you want, helps you build the plan to get there, and then helps you stay on the path of that plan. That's what a great advisor does.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset.
Quick disclaimer that I am not a CPA, attorney, or financial advisor. My thoughts and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for education and informational purposes only. My views are from being a successful business owner, entrepreneur, and real estate professional for over 20 years.
I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
Welcome back to today's show. I am really excited that you are here and joining us again today. We've got an extremely exciting episode. I am with today, our guest is Jonathan DeYoe, and I'm excited to get to know him a little bit more. Before I give a quick bio, Jonathan, if you just want to jump in and say hello.
Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be on the show. Drew, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Just to give you a little bit of background on Jonathan before we dive in today's subject matter. Jonathan is a Lutheran Samaritan turned Buddhist academic turned financial advisor and money coach. First of all, best intro line I've already told him off the air ever. He is a two-time best-selling author of Mindful Money and Mindful Investing and the host of Mindful Money podcast, which I hope everybody checks out. He has been investing for over 4 decades and helping others build wealth for 25 years. He believes the best way to improve financial outcomes for average families is to provide financial education and financial planning. His financial coaching platform, Mindful Money, is the lowest cost way to access the highest value financial coaching available. He does his best work where love and money overlap. So Jonathan, love that. I personally love the financial education. I'm a big believer in education in everything I do in my entrepreneurial life, but also in my real estate investing life. So the more education we can give to others to make informed decisions just helps set them up for success more. So thanks again for being here. And I would love for you to kind of just dive in and tell kind of our audience, a little bit more about yourself and kind of what you're working on these days.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear. Do you want kind of the arc of the story, or do you want to know what's going on right now? Because the arc is interesting, I think.
I love arc. Let's do
you like the arc. Let's do the arc, the origin story. So I've been in the financial services world since 1996. Was a broker on Wall Street for 5 years. Worked for 7 different companies in those 5 years. Just before that, I was a student at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and I came out actually to study at the Graduate Theological Union at the Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary to be a seminarian, to become a minister. And I got here and they said, you know what? We had a bad year last year. We don't have your scholarship money, but you can go door to door to the other 9 institutions and see if they have money. And so I, being the, Buddhist studies, being the, philosophy and religion kind of guy, I went door to door and basically begged with my bowl, like, please help me with a scholarship so I can go to school here. And the Buddhist school said, yeah, we'll help you. So I shifted from seminary to comparative religion. Loved it. So I ended up going deep into Buddhist phenomenology, which is kind of how the Buddhist philosophy about how we experience the world, senses and how do we create meaning out of that. Dropped out of that 3 years later. My wife said she wanted to go to school. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to drop out in a Buddhist studies program. I have a degree in philosophy. What am I going to do? I got to do sales. So I joined a Wall Street firm and just started talking to people about money. Not with a lot of experience, but with a lot of drive and a lot of hope and a lot of, hey, I can do this right. And it took me until like 2017, this is 20 years later, to really combine the two things when I wrote my first book. And 2017, I write the book. It's published. 2012, I start writing it. 2017, it's published. I asked my brother, I've been building my own firm since 2001. I asked my brother, say, hey, could you come on and be my CEO? Could you manage things for me so I can just focus on creating content, educating people, planning, helping people invest, that kind of stuff. You run back office, HR, tech stack, all that stuff. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. And in 2020, 2021, we had finally figured out that his last options were vesting. And he was going to come on board starting January of 2022. in June of 2021, he died. He drowned in the Pacific Ocean, horrible accident. And so we never got to kind of bring that together, and we never got to make that happen. So by the end of the year, I had merged my firm. We had 7 people. I managed $400 million. I merged it into a larger firm so that I had a succession plan in place, so my clients were taken care of, so my team was taken care of, because I just learned a really, really important lesson, and that this doesn't last. This ends at any time. You cannot control the outcome. So you have to build systems of continuity to protect the people around you that you love. And so I kind of pivoted. Like I started working with fewer clients, and I started doing a lot more education, doing a lot more coaching, because I've always wanted to help people that didn't. I've worked with multimillionaires my entire life. I wanted to help people that didn't have access, didn't know who to go to, didn't know where to turn, didn't know where to get the information they could trust. So Mindful Money, the platform, is based on that concept. It's just helping people that don't have access. I think my audience generally and your audience generally are kind of Venn diagrams that don't overlap that much, except in my prior career and I'm still an advisor. I still work with clients. They're probably very similar people. People doing real estate, people doing private equity, people doing all those kinds of syndicates and those kinds of things. That's great. But the folks that Mindful Money really reaches out to are people that are just trying to figure out how to save, just trying to figure out how to start investing, And so when I'm talking about how I invest or how I advise, it's really making it as simple as possible. Don't make it complicated. Folks need to work on building their careers and earning more in order so they can save more and invest more, and eventually get into the more complex stuff and deserve the more, or desire, not deserve, desire the more complex advice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for telling all that, the personal background, personal story, and everything that you've gone through. As far as, who is your avatar? Like, who is the ideal client that you work with? Where do you find kind of that niche that kind of fits your services best?
So the avatar is, the interesting thing about that is, I think, like, all the wealth in the United States resides within 4 or 5% of the people, all of it. And it's heavily skewed to the top 0.0001% of people. So my general client base has always been that top 5% of wealth. Mindful Money is focused on not the bottom 50%. That's harder to help, but between that 50 percentile, which is someone making $60,000 a year, a family making $60,000 a year, and just trying to figure it out. Usually that comes in the frame of somebody that's 20s and 30s. Maybe they're single, maybe they're just married. It also comes in this frame of maybe 40s and 50s, just having gone through a medical crisis, or lost a job, or just coming out of a pandemic, or just coming out of a great recession, or something like that. Someone that made some malinvestments or made some mistakes, and now they're like, I gotta get this straight. I gotta figure this out. So there's young people just figuring it out, but there's also people in their 40s and 50s that made mistakes and need some resurrection in that space.
Yeah. Is it harder for working with people in the 40s and 50s because they have a shorter time to retirement, so you have to compress that plan for them?
It's harder and it's easier. It's harder because the time frame is shorter. They don't have that ability to really focus on that additional 20 years of compounding. That's harder, but they are way more dedicated and diligent. They're like, okay, I am behind the curve. I have got to do something. 20s and 30s, it's hard to convince them that, you should probably think ahead this way. It's a bigger sales pitch that way.
I'll ask you another question do you find it more important to your clients? Did they focus more on how much money and earnings they can make, or shifting their focus on how much can I save?
I'm equal opportunity, totally equal opportunity. The saving, how much I can save, is actually a function of both of those items, of the earnings and the reducing of spending. But that is the key feature. That is the number one thing that anyone can do, is get into that habit of saving. But you can do that by increasing your income, by taking on a side gig, by taking a second job, which I've done all those things. Like I have worked at Allied Van Lines moving boxes, while at night going to and being the fry cook at an Asian restaurant. Like I've done that. Like I know how hard that is, 60, 70-hour weeks. But yeah, you got to earn in order to save, but you also have to manage those expenses.
Yeah, understandable. So what's your next project that you're going to be working on? You've written 2 books. Is there another one in store?
There's probably 3 more in store.
Wow.
I've got a serious arc. One of the things I'm working on. So I actually believe that advisors have a different circle of competence than most people think. And one of the things I do in my work is I'm constantly talking about, when do you get an advisor? What's the purpose of the advisor? And a lot of people, I think the public thinks that what an advisor does is helps you manage money. And I don't, there's nothing further from the truth. Like I don't have any secret sauce. I don't know anything you don't know. I don't have any access to information you don't have. I don't have any ability to calculate things better than you do. What I have is I have a belief in the future. I have a planning mentality. I have a ability to offer perspective when things go sideways, because they absolutely will go sideways. And so what a good advisor is a coach that helps you figure out what you want, helps you build the plan to get there, and then helps you stay on the path of that plan. That's what a great advisor does. It's not, timing the market or picking better investments. Nobody can do that. That's impossible. No one has any facts about the future. So one of the goals I have is to focus the advisory world on the value they actually add, which is in that planning and that behavioral coaching. And so to do that, I think one of the books that's coming up is going to be Mindful Advisor. And it's going to be all a discussion of what is an advisor's circle of competence? What is the value that we add? And that's going to change. I think that changes the way we charge. I think we charge kind of in an old, slightly unfair kind of a way. But it's slowly changing. There's new advisors coming in that charge in a different way that makes more sense for the actual value they provide. And
Let's unpack that. What is old way versus you see the new way?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that I've had a problem with this my entire career, but we charge based on percentage. We charge a percentage based on the assets that we manage.
Right.
Right. And so that's normal. That's like 85% of advisors. That's how they charge. And the fees are coming down. Like the fees are coming down over time, which is great. But they're saying, well, you pay me to manage your assets, a percentage. And so the more assets I manage, the more I get paid. But that doesn't necessarily mean the more assets I manage, the more planning I do, the more value I provide. And so there's a little disconnect there. Disconnect's been there for a long time. So the new ways, there's people that are saying, how about we charge a much lower percentage for the assets we manage, and then we have kind of an hourly or retainer for the planning that we do. I think that's a great way. There's also people that just throw the asset management in for free, and you pay for hourly the planning and the things that you can do. There's advisors out there that are saying, you know what, I will show you how to set your stuff up on Betterment or Wealthfront or one of these favorite platforms, and I'm going to charge you for the time we spend together, like a CPA would or something like that. The problem with that, and I have lots of advisors who would bring this up, and this is true, the problem with that is there is a moment in time when a client is panicked, and in that panic, they want access. And in that moment, all of them are panicked at the same time. So you have to have a system of advice and a process of delivering communication that sort of protects people when things go crazy. So that's really what the mindful money coaching is all about. We meet every single month. We talk about what's going on. So we're sort of reminding people, yeah, this could happen. Yep, inflation could come back in a big way. Yep, we could have a recession. This is what that could look like. People could lose jobs. This is kind of the thing that's happening. We're over investing in AI now. How's that going to implode? We don't know. So we're talking about these things on a regular basis, so that when something happens, people aren't afraid. We're setting expectations up front on a regular basis.
Going back to fees, do you think the world will ever adapt to only charging based on a percentage of what is gained, not managed?
Well, that's already out there. That's there. I would say that's a more expensive way to do it, because it's actually the people that are charging is the private funds that are charging, hedge funds, private equity. They're charging a percentage of gain as well as a 1 or 2% annual cost. It's very expensive, and it's there, but it's a different structure. I don't think that's going to ever be something that's like broadly publicly available. They try to make it
down to the average American.
I don't think it should. I don't think it should. I think the problem, and by the way, private equity hedge funds want it to. They really want to have everyone's money, the 401ks, everything. And this was recently passed. So there are alternative investments that are available in 401ks and those kinds of things, because that's where the most money is. So there's a lot of money in there. Private equity wants their hands on that because they want those fees on that. But all the research says the clients are better off not doing that. They're better off. Again, no one knows anything about the future. If you're paying 1% and 20% of gains, you're going to underperform unless you pick, lucky as you may be, the very best of the very best in that private equity world, which is impossible. You can't do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, you named you gave us a snippet of the one of the next books. Any ideas what the future ones down the road would be after that? Based off it?
I've got Mindful Money, which is sort of a general planning thing. Mindful Investing came out of that as one of the chapters was about investing, so I wanted to expand that. The question that most people ask is about retirement. 95% of all the conversations I have is having a retirement income that rises to meet my rising cost of living and lasts the rest of my life. How do I do that?
At what age do people start those conversations with you?
It's pretty much
in their 20s.
Everyone I talk with. I mean, even there's some kids in their 20s that do it as well, but everyone I talk with, that is the big issue. 20s today, it's more like, how do I pay off my student loans and how do I get a first house, right? That's more important, but that's book 4 is probably Mindful Retirement. And then book 5 is Mindful Wealth. And that's the hard one. That's the question about culture and money and tax rates. And, how do we make this all work for more people? And that's the part that'll be the most difficult book I ever write, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good one though. Awesome. Anything else, I guess, that you would like to add before I throw in my final favorite question that I ask everybody?
I'm all set. Let's hit the favorites.
Here's my favorite final question. Can you give me a longer career journey, highs, lows, and what you've learned?
So a couple highs on the career journey was leaving Wall Street and starting my own company. That was huge. I hired a coach very quickly thereafter and learned how the only way this new company would thrive is if I hired somebody. So hiring people, learning how to do that's another huge, aha moment. Oh, I don't have to do everything. That's an aha moment. That's good. That was a high. And then actually merging with the current firm was an enormous high because if you think about, I was raised sort of poor, and the ability to take care of my family for at least my generation and maybe the next generation is something I've always wanted to do, and that enabled that. So it's a huge positive. Lows were, my brother and I set up our first company, Workers Financial, to do roughly this in 2012, and then we had kids, so we didn't really pursue it. 2006. And then we had kids and we didn't pursue it. And I wish we had, because we would have gotten really far. He's good at what he does. I was good at what I did. It would have been great. So that was a low, not pursuing that. And then when he died in 2021, that was devastating. That was the worst thing in the world. And the only other low I can think of is post-merger. Clients are great. Team is great. Family's great. I had some hopes for some things personally that haven't come to fruition. But still, all in all, that's mostly good. The things I've learned, you got to let stuff go. I mean, you can't let it build. You have to have some kind of a release valve. I've meditated for 25 years. That's been a really, really beneficial thing. The daily quiet time, understanding how my brain reacts to stuff, getting what my biases are, knowing what those internal monologues are, and sort of, ignoring them as much as you can, setting them to the side, letting that go. So important. And I think if you do that, you'll enhance your success in anything if you can understand how your brain works a little better.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us today. Thank you for all the valuable insight. I hope our audience goes and checks you out. If you don't mind, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the website is probably the best, mindful.money, no .com, just mindful.money. And check out the coaching programs, check out the education stuff. If you've got a nonprofit, we do the education stuff for free. Just let us know, and we give it to your nonprofit, your community for free. And we just want to spread it around.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us today. Greatly appreciate everything again, and look forward to following up and connecting with you myself here soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.